And he, unlike the other people in this that people have chosen for their project, he didn't nail 95 Theses to a wall. He didn't radically change theology in any way. Instead, he actually reverted back to the original message of Christ, which was ultimately love your enemies. And he really wasn't anything but a normal persecuted Christian. He was persecuted for 14 years, and he was in prison twice. And through it all, he was able to love his enemy more than he loved himself, or even he loved him more than he loved his own brothers in Christ. And ultimately, that's what all the persecuted Christians were like. And the thing that made him stand out, though, is that when he came out, he had the strength to stand up against the communists, because that was the main enemy at the time. That was America's hated enemy during the 60s. And so when he came back out, he spoke up against them and spoke about the tortures, not so that for us to hate them, but for us to understand, to love them, and hopefully one day the message would save the people that tortured him and the people that killed his family and friends. But his story actually starts in 1909. He was born in Romania, and he was raised as a communist, or a communist sort of education. And he was Jewish, and that's significant because he was an atheist up until the year of 1988 or 1938. And a Christian wanted to convert a Jewish man, so that that was his prayer all throughout. Before his dying wish was to convert a Jewish man, because he wanted to bring Christ's own people to Christ. And it just so happened he came across Richard, and he converted him. And actually, Richard, while he was an atheist, he hated God not because God did not exist, but because he wished that God did exist. He hated him because he wished there was a God that cared for him. And so he became a Christian right in time for the Nazis to take over. And he was persecuted and arrested and beaten by the Nazis. And he said that this was only just a taste of what the communists would bring. And instead of keep on rambling on in my own words, I took a bunch of videos and I put them together and put together a little video for you guys. It's a little rough and some of the text is a little fast, but I hope that and it's him, so his Romanian accent comes through and it's kind of hard to understand, but altogether I hope that you guys will be able to get his message through his own words.
We have taken the decision that if ever any one of us will have the privilege to come out in the West, we will reward those who have persecuted us by creating a mission to the communists. With red-hot iron pokers, with rubber truncheons, with sticks, with all kinds of methods, Christians were tortured by the communists.
Sometimes we would be handcuffed with handcuffs like this to the back. The hands tied to the back. We could not move them. Food was brought to us. We had to lap it exactly like the dogs. Like this. We could not move our hands.
From 5 in the morning until 10 in the evening, 17 hours a day, we had to sit just like this. We were not allowed to lean. For nothing in the world could we rest a little bit our head. To close your eyes was a crime. 17 hours a day you have to sit like this and hear. Communism is good, communism is good, communism is good, communism is good, communism is good. Christianity is stupid, Christianity is stupid, Christianity is stupid. Nobody more believes in Christ, nobody more believes in Christ. Give up, give up, give up. The days, weeks, years, we have to listen to these things.
Prison is not hell. In hell, there is no water. We have water. We have rivers of living water. And we pitied the communists. They have killed many Christians, millions. They have tried to kill us. How stupid. They can kill only bodies. We are not bodies. We are spirit, and the spirit can be killed to die for Christ. Loving Christ means to go to glory, means to go to Christ. People would believe that it has been only deep suffering. But when I remember that time, I remember it as a glorious time, one of the most beautiful times of my life.
At once the walls of the cell began to shine like diamonds. I have heard Bach, I have heard Beethoven in my life. I have seen California, I have seen Napoli, I have seen many beautiful things. Never have I seen the beauties which I have seen in the dark cell beneath the earth. Never have I heard such a beautiful music as on that day. The King of Kings, Jesus, was with us. We were with Christ. We didn't know that we were in prison.
Remember your brethren and sisters in faith who suffer because they love the Lord, and remember the hundreds of millions who are under communist oppression and have no possibility to hear the saving word of the gospel. And remember the poor souls of the communist torturers. They also have to be saved. They must hear the gospel. Pray for them, that the gospel might be known to them too.
Alright. Well, that was Richard in his own words, and it's also important to point out that his wife is very much a part of his life. When the communists were collecting all the church leaders and they were talking to them, telling them how, and all the church leaders were praising the communists, saying that this was a good thing, that the church being controlled by the government was a good thing. He asked her if he should say something, and she said that he should, that he needs to wipe away the shame from Christ's face, and that she would much rather not have a husband than to have a husband as a coward. And so he went to prison, and you heard from his own words, his own experiences, and he was released after 14 years to a missions group. They released him for $10,000, and he worked his way all the way to the U.S., talking in front of the Congress, telling them about all the tortures and the things that he endured and all what his Christian brothers and sisters were enduring, and he wanted to start a missions. And ultimately, it was called another name, but it eventually became known as Voice of the Martyrs. And it's a Christian organization that helps the martyrs in persecuted countries. And ultimately, his goal was not to, once again, he loved them. He didn't want to destroy them. He wanted them to know that God loved them, the torturers, the people that killed them all. And this is one thing that he said after being tortured. If a poor man is a great lover of music, he gives his last dollar to listen to a concert. Then he is then without money, but he does not feel frustrated. He has heard beautiful things. I do not feel frustrated that I've lost many years in prison, for I've seen many beautiful things. Also, while in prison, he speaks of a lot of his experiences, as he says, it was strictly forbidden to preach to other prisoners, as it is in captive nations today. It was understood that whoever was caught doing this received severe beatings. A number of us decided to pay the price for the privilege of preaching, so we accepted their terms. It was a deal. We preached and they beat us. We were happy preaching and they were happy beating us, so everybody was happy. He also wanted wanted to say this to the Christians that forgot about all the other Christians that were being persecuted. He wanted to tell them that I tremble because of the sufferings of those persecuted in different lands. I tremble thinking about eternal destiny for their torturers. I tremble for the Western Christians who don't help their persecuted brothers. Ultimately, the way he saw it, the Christians that did nothing were also just as guilty as those that tortured the Christians. A lot of people, they take Christ's message in the sense of love their brothers and sisters in Christ, and they love them, but they truly don't love them because they don't spread the message. It'd be like if somebody was on a one-way street and they were blindfolded and they were walking towards a car, and you just encourage them. That's the way that we see loving those that don't love Christ. And but loving them is telling them that the car is coming and getting them out of the way. And ultimately, that's the message he wanted to bring. And one of his most famous quotes was that we need to live life, that we need to be like a rose, like a flower. This was his quote: "We need to be like a flower, for if a flower is bruised beneath your feet, it will reward you by giving you its perfume." Ultimately, what he's saying is, even in your last dying breath, that you need to bless those that curse you and ultimately have love for them. So he didn't radically change Christian foundations. Instead, he took them right back to what Christ originally preached, which was just love. And in fact, because this is our theology course, this is what he said about theology. God is truth. The Bible is truth with a lowercase t, about the truth. And theology is truth about the truth about the truth. And he just really wanted to get that message across. And here's some of his other quotes that also defined his life and his message that he wanted to bring. Christians in the West have no love for those in captive nations. Proof of it is that they do nothing for their salvation. But it is not enough that they do not love those in captive nations or do nothing to win them for Christ. By their complacency, by their neglect, and sometimes by acting as actual accomplices, some Western church leaders strengthen the infidels in their infidelity by not loving the communists or the enemy, and those from the other captives that are not allowed to do so, as if the Christians asked permission from Nero to spread the gospel. Western church leaders do not love their own flock, for if they do, they would allow them to participate in the spiritual battle of the world. And ultimately, you see that by the fruits of his labor, which was the Voice of Martyrs. which was founded on the idea, or this was his bring about of Voice of the Martyrs. It was in prison that we found the hope of salvation for the communists. It was there that we developed a sense of responsibility toward them. It was in being tortured by them that we learned to love them. A great part of my family was murdered. It was in my own house that the murderer was converted. It was the most suitable place. So in communist prisons, the idea of a Christian mission to the communists was born. And that's his message that he brought to his life. That is Richard Wilmot.
Good.